I'll read through the statement and then open any questions that you may have. This, of course, is in regard to the decision today of the federal district judge on the corrections system. We have witnessed today usurpation of the powers of state government by the federal court. We have witnessed a disregard for the safety and security of the people of Oklahoma. We are confronted by a very simple and fundamental question. Who shall govern the state of Oklahoma? The people through their elected representatives, or one federal judge who substitutes his edicts for the democratic process? The order of the court defies logic. We are not facing here a situation in which the elected representatives of the people have never considered an issue. Instead, the corrections issue has been carefully and fully debated by the people's elected representatives. We are not facing a situation in which an effort has not been made to improve the prison system. Massive amounts of funds have been provided by the taxpayers. In 3 years, the operating budget has been doubled. As much has been spent on capital projects in 3 years as in the prior 30 years put together. And I might say, in spite of the opposition of some in the legislature, like Senator Young, who voted against giving us a penny to improve these capital programs and who now champions the early release of prisoners. Probation, restitution, and community treatment programs have been massively increased. About 1,200 more beds will be coming online during the next 2 years. Yet, in spite of the massive effort which has been made, a federal judge, elected by no one, chooses to substitute his judgment for the democratic process. We are confronted by the additional question: shall the laws and Constitution of the state of Oklahoma be followed, or shall procedures set down as edicts by one federal judge be followed? Our statutes require our corrections officials to receive inmates under valid state court sentences. Our statutes and Constitution provide one and only one procedure for releasing inmates: a careful and impartial determination by the Pardon and Parole Board that it is safe and proper to do so. Does the court seek to substitute its edict for the laws and Constitution of our state? What should the state do? Can we comply, and should we comply with the court's order? If we're being merely asked to proceed within funds reasonably available to improve all aspects of our prison program, the answer is yes. We are already doing that. We want to continue to do that. If we are asked to violate the laws and Constitution of our state and endanger the lives and property of our citizens by turning loose inmates prematurely, the answer must be no. It's high time that we put the safety of our law-abiding citizens first. We will appeal this decision. We will ask the Circuit Court to let a state which is responsibly facing up to its duties govern itself rather than be ruled by a federal judge. We will ask the Circuit Court to put the protection of law-abiding citizens of this state above all else. We should not and we will not violate our state's laws aimed at protecting the people.
Governor, is there any possibility of special
I don't see any possibility that we will. I do not see anything that we can do in the short term. We are building facilities as fast as we can build them. There is no way that anyone can wave a hand and complete facilities. As soon as I became governor, we started trying to deal with this problem, and we've been dealing with it ever since. I don't see what we can do. I think that the legislature must avoid line iteming the appropriations bills this year so that we will have flexibility to shift inmates between institutions. But in terms of the short run, that would seem to be about the only possibility we have, that is shifting inmates between McAllister Granite and other institutions within the system.
Governor, you mentioned in here once the massive, or several times, massive effort
yes.
that's being carried out, and also
yes.
That we're proceeding within funds reasonably available.
Yes.
Bohannon in his order today specifically said that
Well, you know, I kind of wonder, you know, we have a democratic process, and if the federal, and we have a situation under which the legislature levies the taxes and appropriates the money. Now, we have quadrupled in 5 years. I said here in 3 years we've doubled. In 5 years, we've gone from $6 million a year, approximately, to $24 million a year in operating budgets. 5 years. Now, you show me any place else in the country, or you show me any place else within state government that we've done that. We have, as I said, and I don't have the exact figures on what has been spent since statehood on capital construction. We've spent more on capital construction probably since statehood. I've traced it back 30 years. Now, if the judge wants to tell us what to do, let the judge come up with, you know, what are we going to do? I cannot print money. You know, this shows the danger of the federal court setting policy in this manner. Now, we're different than the other states. We have made massive and major efforts. We're not like some of the other states that have been faced with this before. We've done all that's humanly possible in terms of funding these programs. I think we've been making a major effort already in terms of alternative programs, the restitution program. There was an article about our restitution program in the National Observer on the front page here recently. The probation program, we have doubled state appropriations to that. I recently had a meeting of some of the members of the Pardon and Parole Board and the Corrections Board to see what we could do about increasing the dockets of the Pardon and Parole Board to speed up the release of those who would not constitute a threat to the people. I simply don't know what else we can do that we're not doing. I recommended to the legislature the appropriation of many millions of dollars. As you recall, I passed that appropriation by 1 vote. I even had to dispatch an airplane to bring in that 1 vote. Now, it's easy for the judge to say, get the money. It's a little bit harder to get it.
Would you take the same attitude, perhaps, that Governor Wallace took that did in Alabama, and said, let the federal judge, let the federal court make the inmates pay?
Well, I think that hopefully it will not come to that. And hopefully when Judge Bohannon has an opportunity to reflect, he will reflect upon the fact that we can only do as much as we can do. That there are no magicians. There's no one. I'm not a magician. He is not. The legislature are not magicians. They cannot wave a hand and produce a prison facility overnight. Surely, when the judge reflects, he will enable us to write a plan which would utilize the 1,200 new beds that we are bringing online to reduce the inmate population at Granite McAllister. That certainly we plan to use those beds for that very purpose. That's one of the things I advocated.
You keep talking about 1,200 beds and additional facilities.
Yes.
Your corrections director testified that at the rate Oklahoma is incarcerating convicts right now, that by the time both of your 2 new prisons come on stream, they will both be 50% over capacity.
Well, Frosty, I think that if you said that we did nothing in the meantime, that assumes a constant policy by the state. For one thing, we have acted to increase, the Pardon and Parole Board at their meeting this time, adopted new rules and regulations to increase their own dockets, their own workload. That's one factor that must be considered. We are continuing to work in the last law enforcement mini-cabinet on the restitution program as an alternative to incarceration. And again, also, the rate of increase, you must remember, and I've made this point before, that's if you take 1973 at the base year and you project the rate of increase from the 27 or 2,800 inmates in 1973. Well, prior to the riot in 1973, we had 3,800. So you see, there was a rapid artificial drop because of the riot itself, which makes it look like the rate of increase of incarceration is higher in Oklahoma than it has been historically. I would say there are a lot of factors, and that assumes that we're not continuing to try very hard to find alternatives, and we are. I'm just simply very frustrated. You know, I've helped shepherd through the legislature the largest funding increases in the history of this state for the corrections program. And I would have thought that good faith would have counted for more with the judge. You know, what can you do? All you can do is show good faith.
How does good faith take care of, say, a rat-infested kitchen in the prison of McAllister?
Well, Frosty, all I can say is,
Well, I mean, this was
I've-
the testimony, Governor, and I'm just asking you how good faith takes care of that.
well, good faith gets as much money for us to relieve the serious problems that we have as we can. And as I said, those bills passed by one vote. And I don't think at that time I could have gotten another dollar. And we have been trying very hard to do all that we can. And you know, I think that we ought to consider also what would be the response, and I'm surely the court will work out a plan that would not force us to turn loose 1,000 people immediately. We've got to think, as I've said before, those people did not get put in prison for perfect attendance in Sunday school. They did not get there for that reason.
Governor, why did you apparently change your mind and decide to support the new resolution calling for the prison?
I've not changed my mind at all.
I understand that Senator Howard and other leaders met.
I have never been against a study of our corrections program. What I have been against is an investigation limited solely in terms of complying with federal regulations. I believe more in state government than that.
What will this new one do? What's different about this new one that's your
Well, its focus is upon us trying to devise the very best prison program that we can. Us trying to find all sorts of new program initiatives that would be beneficial as alternatives to incarceration, that would help reduce the recidivism rate, which crowds our prisons. I do not think the whole purpose of having a federal system is to allow states to show some initiative and some originality on their own, and I do not think that we should limit, and that's what I said if you read my message. I did not say I was against a study. I said I was for a study. I said that the Legislative Council could establish a study which would be very broad-based and which would be better. And that's exactly what I said in my veto message. If you read the resolution limited the study to one and only one purpose, an investigation of our compliance with all federal guidelines. Well, I think the state government ought to set its sights higher than that.
Well, apparently that was the most pressing thing because right after it was vetoed, the
Well,
prison shut
Well, I tell you what, if you'd been governor, you might have wanted to sign it. I'm governor and I didn't want to, and I don't believe in it, and I did what I thought was right.
Governor, what kind of timetable are we talking about before this reaches the head? Weeks, months?
Well, I would suspect it will be some period of time. There will be a 10-day period during which time Dr. Benton will be working with the court to see if we can find a reasonable basis for the phasing down of our inmate populations as these 1,200 new beds become available. And certainly he's going to cooperate in every way he can. Now, there's some things Dr. Benton can't do. One is he can't refuse to accept people that are convicted and sent to him under court order. I've cited the statute here. As public officers, the corrections officials are required to receive into custody those convicted by our courts. He can't refuse to do that, nor can he release people. The only body under our Constitution that can release people is the Pardon and Parole Board. Must make the recommendation. Of course, they must do so before I can even act. So within the bounds that he cannot refuse to accept people and that he cannot himself unilaterally release people, certainly Dr. Benton is going to work with the court to do everything possible for the orderly channeling of inmates within the bounds of our resources. And that will happen during 10 days, Harry. Then we will be appealing to the 10th Circuit. The plan which he will adopt itself will be reasonable. I hope that the shorthand way it was expressed today is not an indication of the kind of plan we'll be faced with. I hope he'll be reasonable. We hope to win in the 10th Circuit. If we don't, we'll go to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Does the Board of Corrections have to file this appeal?
The Attorney General's office will file it on behalf of the Board of Corrections. And they are already setting to work on the appeal. We will, of course, also ask for a stay of the district court order during the time that the appeal is conducted. I think that would be fair, that until we've had a chance to be heard on appeal, the order should not be immediately implemented.
Governor, what hope do you have to have people overturn this in the appeals process? These kind of decisions have been upheld.
Well, I'm hopeful because our situation is different. As I said before, show me one state that's quadrupled its operations budget in 5 years, doubled it in the past 2.5 years. Show me one state that has made the kind of effort that we have made for capital outlay improvements. show me anybody that's expanded probation like we have, or have gone into community treatment centers in the way in which we have, the effort that we've made. I think our situation is different. I would hope that the judge would again give this very careful consideration. You know, I'm not saying, and don't get me wrong, when I talk about the substitution of the rule of federal courts for our elected officials, when I say I think that what's been done here is wrong, I'm not saying that a state doesn't have a responsibility. We do have a responsibility. We should meet our responsibility. What I'm saying is when a state is doing everything that it can to meet its responsibility, I think that the democratic process should be allowed to be followed.
Is the state going to continue sending prisoners from McAllister to Granite?
Well, we have to continue to receive them there, and of course the order does not prevent us from receiving them there for processing. I would say that what we will try to do, as we've been trying to do all along, hold the McAllister and Granite reformatory populations as low as possible, and utilize any existing space any place else that we have. But of course the result will be, if we immediately have to start moving to other institutions, we will tend to overcrowd them in time.
Well, what I meant was, if you appeal the decision,
Yes.
you plan to abide by the judge's rules?
Well, if we appeal the decision, the department will continue to do what it's done, and that is, in its own judgment, decide where it's safest and most secure to put people. You know, in other words, how many can we have safely at Stringtown and other facilities, for example? We'll try to put as many in these other places as we safely can.
It'll be along the same lines of what you're doing already, or what the department.
Yes, in other words, our conscious policy right now is to hold the population at the McAllister State Penitentiary and the Granite Reformatory as low as possible. That is our current attempt. Now the problem is, where do you put them? Once you get these other institutions full, and they're virtually full now, and we're trying to work out the community treatment center problem as fast as we can to get more beds there. We have talked about utilizing sulfur. As you know, this is another step. I don't know if this was brought up to the court, but the legislature, I think the chances are before they adjourn that we will be able to go ahead with the funds to use sulfur, the old Job Corps Center there, for women inmates, I believe. Is that correct?
Governor,
And,
are you ruling out down the line the alternative of trying to find 900 or 1,000 inmates?
well, as I say, find them for me. I just don't know who they are. And the Pardon and Parole Board, let me put it this way, the Pardon and Parole Board will just have to look at these people on a fair and impartial basis. Now, the board has already taken steps, which I urged them to take in our meeting a little over a month ago, to increase their dockets so that they will hear more. We've tried to get it up 200, 250 on the dockets, and maybe even 300 on the dockets. But on the other hand, you know, when the board hears them, if the board in conscience does not feel it's safe to release them, I don't know what we can do about that.
Governor, you talk about the board in conscience, when what is the average? 3.5 or 4 minutes they spend with a convict? The judge was high in his praise for Dr. Benton, for Warden Chris, and the people who are trying to maintain.
Yes, I think they're trying. They're trying.
The people of Oklahoma have twice in recent years voted down a full-time pardon and parole board. The Uniform Sentencing Act has been defeated repeatedly in the legislature, and a modern criminal code was killed year before last in the Senate.
Frosty, on those matters, I can only say, as you know, I have supported the full-time pardon and parole board every time that it's been up. I've spoken for it. I'm not. No. I'm not reacting. Well, if we talk in terms of fundamental solutions, I'm not sure that there's any place, anywhere, that's found a fundamental solution. I think that what we're trying to do, and very hard, if you noticed, my program that I presented to the legislature was not just a brick and mortar program. Yes, it was to try to get us more space, and also so we could separate inmates. Yes, that was part of it. It was expansion of community treatment, which is very, very important. The restitution program bill was a part of my legislative program and the others. And as I say, I've supported the full-time partner parole board. Now, we've just done the best that we can. And what I'm saying is, I think it's a tragic mistake to substitute his action, I mean, which puts, in other words, when we're doing all that we can do, you can't make the people vote things they don't want to vote, and we shouldn't. It's a democracy.
Yes, you can, Governor.